Good morning, everyone. It's a great honor to be here on stage, and the first thing I need to do is to thank you, Kike, for inviting me, and we've had great discussions about what the day is about to be and my possible role in it. What I promised Kike is that I will try to connect a few knots from yesterday. The way I will be able to do it remains to be seen, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe this, in fact, the photo you see is the best part of what you need to know of me. What I will be talking about today is three things, basically. My own framework, because my own framework sets the tune for everything I talk about, the way I understand things, and the way I can deliver anything to you. That will be the first one. And the second one will be related to a lot of what has been said yesterday already, but it's important enough, so I will continue with the complex challenges we are facing, and I will try to tell you, explain you what my approach to policy work is, what my approach to design policy is, and how it relates to all of you who are here today, the organizations, the individuals. And the third thing will be related to awareness. We are talking about design awareness today, and I will sort of say a couple of things on that as well. So, my framework. Where I come from, this is my landscape. It's 4,500 kilometers north from here. So almost as far as you can go in Europe. So I moved there to the Arctic. The region is Lapland in Finland. I moved there 13 years ago. And moving to the Arctic has changed me probably more than anything else during my life. When you move to a completely different environment, you have to re-evaluate, reassess your point of view to the world. And this I definitely had to do. Of course, 13 years ago, the discussion on climate change was not as vivid, not as active as it is now, but it was there. It has been there for quite a long time already. And for me, moving up north in the Arctic was the point where I realized that from my own perspective, that this is definitely something design has to be involved in. Hence, I started to talk about Arctic design. And the whole thinking was evolving and has been evolving around the realization that if we want to create a sustainable and maintain and develop further the sustainable Arctic region, design needs to play a role. And what has happened in between the 13 years back and now is that there are universities who are now talking about Arctic design. Sustainability related issues are more on the agenda with the universities located in the Arctic, etc. But the point is that now, today, the urgency is different from what it was 13 years ago already. But also as important as it is to realize that we are in an urgent situation and we need a lot of rapid solutions as well, this is not a new topic. And this was referred to yesterday. I think it was, let me check, it was René. You mentioned the Club of Rome report 50 years ago, 1972. So nothing new in this, nothing new in the design community either. You all know the role Victor Papanek played in end of 1960s, early 1970s. But what has changed? I think what has changed is one thing is the urgency. But the other thing is that the world has become more complex. Globalization has certainly something to do with it. we are facing more complex challenges than possibly ever before, or maybe that's not even true. Maybe we have faced complex challenges earlier in history as well, but the difference now is that we know more about them. We know more about the global situation, and because the complex and systemic challenge is so vast, it becomes difficult for us to understand it. So what we try to do, in fact, and this was touched in many talks yesterday, we try to narrow down the complexity. And maybe one of the most important messages from yesterday was both what Ezio Mancini was saying and a few others as well, in relation to that we can't really simplify complexity. And when we can't simplify complexity, it unavoidably means that the solutions we can create, they become complex as well. Also yesterday, someone said that, simple solutions are not a solution, they are a problem, and that was René again. So how do we deal with this? We deal with this in different ways, as individual design professionals, as organizations, individual organizations, as businesses, and as global or international organizations. And as I was president of BEDA, the Bureau of European Design Associations, a while ago, BEDA has close to 55 member organizations in almost 30 countries in Europe. The level of dealing with the complex challenges becomes a bit different. But I also see that the best and a very good opportunity in dealing with complex challenges on the global scale is also through the international organizations. It's not perhaps the responsibility of an individual designer to really handle the complexity, the whole complexity, but I don't know really how a European organization could avoid that. Because if it's anyone's responsibility, I really believe that it's the responsibility of the representative organizations who can play this game, who can have the conversation, who can carry on with the dialogue with complex organizations themselves. And maybe this is something I would like to suggest to the global design community, that we really should aim at having a global level discussion, a global level conversation on the complex challenges we are facing, together with international bodies who are in a position where the policy decisions are made. And I also believe, at this point, I believe that the most effective way to do this is not through design policies as such. What I think is that a more effective way to achieve outcomes is to integrate design in policies, not through separate individual design policies, but through having a dialogue with other policymakers and trying to make sure that design is integrated in these policies. This is not at all to say that the work that is done through national design policies, local or regional design policies is not useful, but I just want to be honest with you that this is sort of the conclusion of the time I have spent, let's say, with the European Commission, trying to see how we can best infiltrate design in policies. And you may easily prove me wrong. If you disagree, feel free to say so, but this is what I think at the moment. Also, there's another point to this. Often when we talk about design policies, and this is what BEDA used to do as well, and it has worked in its time, but I don't think it works at the moment. Design policies often have a focus on design and have a focus on designers. With the ambition that the ambition related to policies is to improve the situation of design in whatever way, but to improve design or the position of designers. I think the complex challenges we are facing, climate change, one of them, is good enough reason to change the focus from what we can expect from any bodies like the European Commission in Europe to sort of help designers improve. I think it's the other way around. It's our task, our job, designers' job, to see what we can do on policy level, what we can do to find solutions to the most pressing challenges we have. So it's a different approach. And if I'm sort of summarizing from my point of view, from my understanding, what happened yesterday in our discussions, often the focus is still in design. And maybe this is actually to reflect on what Mr. Molinari was saying yesterday, that we shouldn't really try to convince the value of design, but we should try to talk about the outcomes made through design. And this, I couldn't agree more than this. Then, everything I have said, of course, bears a relationship to what we can do on a global level. And can we do anything on global level? A lot of discussion yesterday was related to proximity. And proximity, Ezio was talking about it, many other people were talking about it. But what I think about proximity, I think it's from the point of view of finding concrete solutions to concrete challenges. Proximity is fine, possibly necessary, but proximity is relative. If you look at the globe from Mars, proximity is very different from me looking at Valencia, the region of Valencia, or thinking that I'm 4,500 kilometers away from my home. So proximity is relative, and honestly, I don't really know yet how this reflects on me saying that we need to find policy-level solutions on a global scale. But I still think that it's important that the design organizations, the global design community, talks about the level of policy where we are not only reacting to what already exists, but we try to find a level where we can be proactive, round the tables where the decisions on what we are focusing on globally are made. A lot of design activities are reactive, in fact. We take a lot of policies given, and we don't have too many possibilities to have an impact on how the higher level policies are made. And this, I hope we can change. And for me, the only way we can change it is if the global design community has a conversation, a dialogue amongst themselves, but also together with those bodies who really make the decisions. Then maybe the last part, design awareness. Often what I feel designers and design communities, what we are doing is that what we mean by design awareness is awareness of design from the others. We are eager to create an impact on awareness, the level of awareness of our stakeholders, our collaborative organizations, etc. And that's fine. But I think that in times like ours, where we really have a lot of complex challenges, we also need to look at the mirror and to be aware of what our own design awareness is. Design is changing very rapidly. We have different narratives about design. We have different ways to adapt design, and these narratives don't always meet. If we are to take part in finding solutions to the global and wicked and complex systemic challenges, then we need to be aware of our own design awareness as well. And maybe it's easier to discuss about design awareness in others, but I think it's important to do it amongst the design community as well. In many ways, it means that we need to take the responsibility for our own actions and decide what is the level of impact we want to create in the societies. I've mentioned René many times, and there's also a good reason to that. I liked your presentation yesterday, and when you showed one slide, you know, I fell in love with the presentation. You had a quote on a film, which was very popular when it was released in 1989, for a very good reason. Dead Poets Society. Who has seen it? Quite a few of you. It's absolutely one of my favorite films. And the quote you had put on your slide, Captain, oh Captain, do you know where that comes from? Well, you know certainly, but how many of you remember where it comes from? It comes from a poem of Walt Whitman, and it's about Abraham Lincoln. But there are millions of great quotes in that film and great scenes. One of my favorite scenes is related to Robin Williams playing the teacher he's playing, leaps on top of his desk. And when he says, just when you think you know something, you have to look at it in another way. And even if it scares you, even if it feels wrong, you have to do it. And this, for me, is something I would very much like to suggest as a takeaway from my presentation, maybe from the whole event. Just when you think you've got it, think again. Change the perspective. Changing perspective, keeping perspective is, I think, one of the critical things if the design community wants to succeed in the future as well. Thank you very much.